Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sun Show. That's at the Loyal Suns on all of the social media. Follow us here and follow us there for Pitt sports content you will not want to miss. If you love basketball season swooping in to save our feelings and hate ACC refs, this this is the place for you. The Loyal Sun Show, a safe, sunshiny only if you're a basketball fan place for your Pitt Athletics fix. I am David. I am here with Dylan. Squid could not be here. Fill in the blank why. The funniest reason you could imagine for Squid not being here is the reason he's not here. But he's not. And it's just the two of us here to sulk. Sulk like Jonas.
Yeah, this went bad very quickly. Very quickly. And I don't know. How did we get here? How did the best start since the 80s for this football program suddenly turn into one of the more bleak Novembers we will experience as Pitt football fans? I guess that's what we're here to uncover and unwrap in this, next hour or so.
Think of the schools that would be like ferociously pissed off at a 7-2 start. Alabama was pissed at a 7-2 start. Ole Miss, lot of shit being talked about Lane Kiffin because of a 7-2 start. I mean, just if Ohio State started 7-2 this year, Ryan Day's job might be on the line. Those are fan bases that would be infuriated by a 7-2 start. So that must mean it's a good thing for us to be pissed off. A very, very auspicious omen for the direction of Pitt sports. If we're all pissed off at the 7-2 Panthers, right? That has to be the answer.
If there was anything on Saturday that would have given me hope to be like, oh, just clean up these couple things and we can still finish 10-2, or if there was anything from the previous week that led me to believe that, then yes, maybe. But the way that this team has just kind of nosedived in the past two games, man, it really doesn't feel like we're 7-2 at all.
Well, that's because it's not just the last two games.
Yeah.
It's the result from the last two games kind of opens up your eyes to the body of work since North Carolina, with the exclusion of Syracuse, I guess. Although many have pointed out that the offense looked really stagnant, we just didn't want to believe it was because they suck at the time. We wanted to believe it was because they didn't need to do anything in that game.
Yeah.
But no, things have looked bad the last couple weeks, and I think the answer to the question, how can we be justified in feeling this terrible after a 7-2 start, is because of just how in play and honestly kind of likely 7-5 looks.
Okay, let me get this out of the way now, this caveat. I know there will be people listening, and there's already people beating the drum about, oh, if you would have signed up for 7-2 before the season, if I told you in August they'd be 7-2 at this point, you would have signed up for 100 times out of 100. And while that is true, things change, expectations change. I know, David knows that we would have signed up for that back in August. So now that that is out of the way, we don't have to bring that talking point up again for the remainder of this recording. What you just said, Squid asked me last week what was more likely after the SMU loss, more likely that they finish 11-1 or 7-5. And I said, you know what? I don't want to overreact too much. 11-1 probably more on the table, although I didn't feel great about it at the time, because I thought they were going to rebound and beat a UVA team that is not very good. They were unable to do that. A week removed from that conversation, I think 7-5 is much more likely than 10-2 at this point by an overwhelming margin. They're staring down Clemson and Louisville, who are turning out to probably be two of the 3 or 4 toughest games on their schedule this year. And kind of just limping into it. Don't know what the status of Eli Holstein is, but if I was a gambling man, I would probably bet that he doesn't play on Saturday, seeing as he got his brain turned to mush Saturday trying to slide and just taking an absolute shot to the head. So, yeah, 7-5 very much on the table.
So let's talk about the game on Saturday. And I think what you just mentioned is a good starting point because I don't think there is a better example of how quickly things have turned, how quickly the momentum of this program has died, than your starting quarterback, this guy who has looked like some young stud half the season, getting very intentionally brained on a play that he had given himself up. The defender comes in head first, targets in the most literal sense. I'm not talking football targeting. I'm saying that guy went to the ground with the intention of, I am going to brain this guy. And nobody on that offensive line tries to catch a manslaughter charge.
Yeah, I think that was our first reaction after. Well, everyone does the targeting signal in their seats to get the refs to make the call. Then we're all like, okay, Eli's alive. And then we said, why are there not 5 linemen just kicking the shit out of this guy? Like, we can take our own 15-yard unsportsmanlike, but
They'll
to
offset or
let
whatever.
your star quarterback, your freshman, your leader, just take what was by most standard a fairly dirty hit, and to just let it kind of go by without, like, I mean, look, people are gonna say, "Oh, discipline, you can't take the 15-yard penalty." No, that would have
I
been
don't
worth
care.
every 15 yards or whatever
Every
the offsetting
inch
would have been.
of that
Yeah, every
15
inch.
yards.
Yeah, I mean, that was pathetic.
And then on the flip side of that, the general reaction of the crowd, and this isn't necessarily a indictment on Pitt fans as much as an indicator of like how quickly, again, things have changed. The general response in that crowd was, that sucks. Well, let's see if Nate can save us. Because I think, and I almost want to whisper this part, I think people had seen enough of Eli in the last couple games that they were not going to call for his job, but were really interested to see if Nate could not be Captain Suckass.
There,
So just two awful signs. One, a team that has lost its mojo and seems to be going into a crater, and a fan base that is ready to just try anything, even if it's the result of something as terrible as our young quarterback probably getting concussed and maybe missing this week. That is where we are.
that's where we are. And the answer to that question, could Nate potentially provide that spark, not be Captain Suckass? The answer is no. No, he very much did not provide much of a spark. Came in and almost immediately threw his first of 2 very bad interceptions on deep balls that were basically just like, all right, let me take a shot here. And it was essentially fair caught by the Virginia defensive back. It was bad. And it maybe shows that it's not just Eli at this point, or maybe Nate didn't have it, but this is a offense that through 5 weeks of the season felt like could score in any instant, could keep us in any game. We thought that I mean, this is part of what built the optimism so high early in the season was that we now had an offense that could keep us in it against anyone. And now all of a sudden they're terrible again. And which was the whole point of I guess the biggest goal of this season, or at least from our perspective, was let's go into 2025 knowing that we have an offense that resembles a modern collegiate football offense and can be pretty effective. And through half the season, it was like, oh, wow, we do. Yes, this is great. We have our quarterback of the future. Our OC is a genius. I hope he doesn't get picked off by an SEC school. And now is this the same guy calling the plays? Is this the same guy throwing the passes?
Well, I have some thoughts on Cade Bell. I'm gonna hold on to those for a minute. Uh, I want to keep talking about Nate Yarnell's performance because you mentioned one thing that gave me absolute PTSD. Watching a Pitt quarterback go out there and throw 2 interceptions that were fielded like punts.
Yeah.
Threw 2 interceptions in which the safety was able to get under the ball, wait for it, and field it like a punt reminded me of Phil. It reminded me of Slovis versus Louisville. And I just didn't think I'd have to see that kind of performance again for a while, especially from a guy that we all thought before the season was the safe option, the guy who's not going to throw arm punts. And even when Eli got the job, and even when Eli was showing his stuff, the guy we thought, well, if anything ever went sideways, we have a backup who we know has a high floor and won't be out there throwing arm punts. And I don't even think arm punt properly conveys how bad those passes were. These were like, at least one of them was a non-third down play where he stood back there with time, which was very rare given the way our line has played recently. And he just stood there and stood there and stood there. And without a alternate force like down and distance or the defensive line forcing his hand, just launched 2 balls 50 yards to a waiting safety.
Yeah, both plays felt like he didn't see where the ball was going or like didn't see a defender in that area. And yeah, it kind of felt like a lot of the rest of the offense feels like right now. Oh, let's just try something. I'm just going to throw this ball deep. Hopefully it lands in one of our receivers' arms.
Well, and even when the ball has been landing in their arms, that doesn't always mean that it's getting brought in because our receiving core that had two drops on the season through 7 games had, I think it had to have been between 5 and 8 against Virginia.
Yeah, and they weren't even like, oh, that was a tough play to make there. It was like run a 10-yard curl, turn around, ball hits me in the chest, and it's inexplicably drops to the ground. That happened at least 3 times. So, yeah, just about everything is going wrong right now.
I thought the defense performed fine.
Yeah.
Held Virginia to 170 yards passing and under 4 yards per carry. Like that's what you ask of those guys. 8 tackles for loss. 6 sacks. We sacked Calandria 6 times and lost to a 4-4 team.
Yeah.
He threw 2 picks.
Yeah. Kyle
So
Lewis
defense,
once again made one of the most athletic looking plays I've seen on a football field.
So defense, you're cool. None of this beef is towards you. back to the offense. What was your, oh, it's over moment?
Honestly, I kind of got that feeling when I saw Eli have to get helped off the field because even though we were winning, it felt like I felt like Eli could make just enough plays uh, to basically not screw that game up. That's how I felt at halftime. I was like, we can limp to the end of this game and win this game like 16-10 and get out of here with a win. Um, but then I think after the first Yarnell interception where they returned the ball essentially into the red zone, scored a couple plays later, I was like, oh yeah, this that'll do it. There's no hope for this offense. So I don't know. What was it for you?
It was, I think, third quarter. They ran Kanate Mumfield on a post pattern, and the defense forgot he was there. He ran a post, and it would have been the easiest, like 85-yard touchdown you've ever seen in your life. And Holstein threw the ball on the other side of the North Shore.
Yeah, just skipped it to him.
Eli didn't have a guy in his face yet. The most clear guy running open of all time, skipped it to him.
Yeah, you know, that's a good choice because that was definitely the point where I was like, "Oh man, he's broken."
Well, no, it got better. Because the very next play, Cade Bell calls the same exact play. The literal same exact play. And you know what Virginia did? They forgot Mumfield was there again. So same play. Mumfield has a little bit less separation on his guy. I think the guy covering him kind of wised up, but wasn't the athlete necessary to stick with Mumfield. There was no safety help over top. Hit him in stride, and if the guy behind him, the guy covering him, doesn't catch him, probably also an 85-yard touchdown. Eli puts it just a little bit too far in front of him, and Mumfield swan dives headfirst into the turf and concusses himself. Probably, maybe. I don't think we saw him again in that game. He had to be assisted off the field. So it felt like just such a perfect encapsulation of the last couple weeks of Cade Bell scheming a guy wide open. And whether it being a failure, maybe there was a little bit of pressure on that second one. I don't know. I don't have a photographic memory of these plays, but whether it be the line or whether it be Eli Holstein, everything gets screwed to hell.
Yeah. Speaking of scheming guys open, that just reminded me of the Poppy Williams ran a double move like to perfection, was running completely uncovered down the sideline, and Nate Yarnell overthrew him by about 5 yards. That was another rough watch. No guarantee Poppy would have caught it had a case of the drops on Saturday, but
yeah, because the same thing happened, and Eli threw the nicest pass he's thrown since North Carolina, hit him in the hands, and he dropped it, which also looked like the same exact shit that Sincere Lee did against SMU. So,
and that play also would have got called back on a hold on one of Ryan Bear's, I think, 4 holding penalties on Saturday.
Yeah, on a side note, what's happening there? That's our 4-star offensive tackle that was supposed to be the future of this offensive line. Just can't keep a guy from mauling his quarterback without getting 2 hands underneath his jersey. But that's, again, there's a million little things that we could probably do like a whole segment on, and it's all just unraveling at once. So we just have to kind of keep it high level. So continuing with that theme, Cade Bell, what do we make of what's going on right now?
It's really hard for me to decide. Like, I don't think Cade Bell just forgot how to call plays and scheme guys open. Like we said, multiple times in that game that he did scheme guys open and the players just couldn't execute. Why is it becoming so often that these guys can't execute? I think that's the bigger question that we have to figure out. Um, but a continued theme that I've said on probably each of the last 4 episodes at this point, uh, running the football, just not nearly like in any capacity a priority in this offense. If Des Reed doesn't just do Des Reed things behind the line of scrimmage and make a guy miss and beat everyone to the outside for a 30-yard gain, um, the running game is essentially non-existent. And yeah, I don't know what it is. The easy plays aren't there like they were early in the season. I don't know, once again, if this is more of an Eli, like Eli is a little shook, isn't trusting those easy plays, or if there's too much film out there on Cade Bell's offense. But whatever it is, um, it quite frankly looks like Cade has been demoted or something, and Narduzzi has taken over the play calling duties. Well, not completely. They would be running the ball much more.
In defense of Cade Bell, in half defense of Cade Bell,
Who we
I think
gave
my
the midseason MVP award on this show, by the way.
the kiss of death. My feelings towards Cade Bell have gone from anger to understanding to gratitude back to anger since the start of that game against Virginia. Shit was clearly not working from the get go. So I got pissed off, right? Like, how do we look this bad again? How does Eli look bad again? Why? What is the deal with the play calling? How is he so bad at scripted drives? Let me repeat that. How is he so bad at scripted drives? Have we scored the first time we've touched the ball since like week 3 or whatever?
It feels like the first drive of every game is just a no doubter 3 and out.
No doubt, or 3 and out. If they get more than 4 yards, it's a victory. But then I pay closer attention. I see like guys are open. The ball's just not getting to them, or it's hitting them in the hands and falling to the floor. And then I went back to, this sucks, but he is a pretty good OC, and we're lucky to have him. And if anyone can figure it out, it's him. And then in the days since the game, this was all during the game. In the days since the game, I've gone, wait, no. Wouldn't a halfway decent offensive coordinator realize that their line can't block a child, realize that their receivers are struggling, realize that nobody is taking the run game seriously and just dropping 7-8 guys, change their tendencies, give their quarterback the help he needs, give their line the help he needs, and scheme something to be less predictable. Maybe this guy is a decent play designer, but just terrible situationally. Because I don't know how you see Eli struggling the way he has in the last couple weeks and still have him throwing the ball 23 times in 2.5 quarters.
Yeah, Cade Bell has certainly forgotten more about football than I've ever known. Um, but I I have to agree with you that he's not doing something that needs to be done. Like, it's almost like, okay, this isn't working. Well, it worked for us early in the year, so it's going to start working again. Um, I find it hard to believe that all of the offensive players have just forgotten how to play after as well as they played. So, I mean, he has to shoulder a good bit of that blame. But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of people seem to think that Cal just kind of gave the blueprint. Um, drop 2-3 safeties, make them throw the ball underneath, make Eli take what's underneath for him, get a little pressure in his face. I don't know if that's the case, but it sure seems like ever since that game, the blueprint is out there because just about every game has looked the same for Pitt offensively.
Yeah, and really no desire to do anything differently. Looking at the box score, Desmond Reed had 16 carries for 80 yards, which looks good on paper, but it was another example of him busting one long run and getting hit at the line of scrimmage every other time. Dan Carter, 3 carries, no attempt to involve Rodney Hammond. 6 carries for Yarnell, 7 for Eli, and almost all of those were designed passes that the offensive line were unable to hold contain on. It just got so abysmal so fast. And perhaps it's time for us to move on from this
Yeah.
and stop harping on this atrocious loss to a bad UVA team that effectively ended the season just hours after Miami threw us the kindest lifeline possible. But there is one thing left in this game we have to talk about, and I'm proud of us for not leading off with it. And that is that fourth down call by those ACC officials to sink Pitt and end the game. You look
From
ready to roll, Dylan. You wanna take things from here?
Yeah, I'm ready to go because look, I hate blaming the refs. I hate putting the game into the officials' hands. And I don't think Pitt played good enough on Saturday to walk out of there with a win. I don't think they played like a team who deserved to win the football game. But with that being said, that was probably the most puzzling and worst call I've seen in a football game, in a Pitt football game. And look, there are always going to be bad calls in football. And I'll give it to refs. Like a lot of those plays in real time with the play happening feet away from you, you're going to make some bad pass interference calls that no one, or you're going to miss some pass interference calls. You're going to miss some holds. The rule book has a million different rules about what is and isn't targeting. So, look, the refs have some tough jobs in places, but that play, to allow the play to snap, to allow it to play to completion, to allow one of the linesmen to go out and start spotting the ball short of the first down, only for the head referee to come to the middle of the field and announce to the home crowd that actually that play didn't count. We weren't in position to do anything. We're just going to give them the ball back and get another chance at this 4th and 1 that could potentially ice the game for them. We sent that out as a tweet. I saw several non-Pitt related accounts tweeting about it. Even had some non-Pitt fans who are in my life text me like that was bullshit. I don't think I've ever seen that situation on a football field, and quite frankly, I don't think anyone can defend it. The ACC can put out as many statements as they want, as many responses to uh, our great local journalists around here as they want to. Chris Carter was absolutely taking heads on
Warrior.
the days following. Shout out to him, Chris Carter, the Post Gazette, absolutely just letting people have it, letting the ACC have it. Based on his research, it should have at the very least been a 5-yard penalty for snapping the ball prior to when the officials were ready to go. That moves it to a 4th and 6. A deeper field goal, and with 6 minutes left, gives Pitt a whole lot of time to score a touchdown if needed. There's a missed field goal. We only need 3 points from our stud kicker. So just completely changed the game. Probably one of the most inexplicable calls you'll ever see on a football field. And yeah, those referees were pathetic for that.
There are a whole myriad of outcomes from that play. So many potential windows of opportunity to walk through, so many different possible outcomes. The refs took the only one that gave UVA the ball and an opportunity to extend the drive. All the other outcomes are within the confines of the rule. You let them play because, okay, maybe by the letter of the law you aren't in position, but the ref got out of there. I've seen the video a million times on Twitter. The ref was fully out of the zone you have to get out of for them to proceed with the play. Okay, so you want to follow the letter of the law? That is a false start. By definition, they started falsely before they were given the go ahead to run the play. So they have to kick a field goal. We lost 4 minutes in a one-score game. This play occurred at 6:06. Pitt did not get the ball back and run another play until 2:02. 4 full minutes in a one-score game.
Yep. Oh, it completely changes the rest of the game.
And then Pitt marches down, and Nate Yarnell throws a 35-yard interception on 2nd and 10 with 1:42, and I think at least one timeout left. So, hey,
Not blameless.
maybe we aren't blameless, but it was just
No, that was, and I have to give it to the fans. Maybe we should have thrown beer bottles on the field and got the call reversed, because you can do that in some parts of the country. But no, I give it to the fans for booing for essentially the remainder of that game.
every time there was like a moment of dead space, people just started booing again. Like even when Pitt has the ball and is driving to try to win the game, timeout, chorus of boos.
Yes. Well deserved.
That's just so Bush League, so ACC. I was cracking up at the sequence as it happened because Pitt drives down, scores, Gavin Bartholomew touchdown, finally 2-point conversion, tie the game. We get our boy Gavin, the octopus, the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. But hold up. Ryan Baer commits his 4th holding of the game. And, you know, I didn't watch any of the tape, but I just remember looking at him and him being like absolutely apoplectic that it was called. So, you know, I'd love to see the tape on it. I was too lazy to do so or too hurt to do so before this, but maybe it's one of those situations where, well, this guy's been holding all game. Let's keep an eye on him. Flag comes out of pocket. But either way, the game tying play is nullified because of a penalty. And then for Virginia to march down and be given the ability to erase. When did they start with the ball? Jesus Christ. 8.5 minutes off the clock.
Yeah, and they got a 5th down.
We're so unbelievably cooked. There's my preview for the Clemson game. I don't even know if we want to do that. We're so unbelievably cooked.
I think you referred to the SMU game as this Murphy's Law-ass game. I think this is starting to become this Murphy's Law's-ass last 5 games of the season.
This is a Murphy's Law-ass team.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all that, you know what? We might have brought this on ourselves. All that banging on the table we did about being disrespected, not being ranked high enough. This is what we get. Every time we start to get a little bit of pep in our step, puff out our chest a little bit, the universe brings us back to earth and reminds us we're still Pitt. And we're still Pitt fans. So for that reason, we will be on the North Shore Saturday as the Pitt Panthers take on the Clemson Tigers. As we're recording, it's 6:16 right now on Tuesday, so the new college football playoff rankings haven't been released. So we don't know if this will be a top 25 matchup. I'd have to assume they're dropping us from the rankings. I know the AP couldn't wait to do that. But we will be there to watch a Pitt team play a ranked Clemson team at noon, a noon kick on ESPN. David, can you give me any sort of roadmap, any hope that Pitt can just piss us off with a win? Because if they win this one, I'll be pissed off about how they lost the Virginia game. Or will they be pissing us off with a loss?
Yes. No, I'm not going into this game with any hope whatsoever. 2 weeks ago, this looked like it could be a top 10 matchup to decide who was going to be going to the ACC championship. And now it's a limping 2-loss number 17 Clemson versus an absolutely bottoming out 7-2 Pitt Panthers. We're 10.5-point underdogs. I probably will bet on Clemson with the points. I see this being like the rock bottom, and maybe we turn around and beat Louisville and then BC. I don't know. With the exception of last year, Narduzzi teams never bottom out fully. Like, remember, we thought we were bottoming out in the COVID year, and then we turned around and saved the season in that last stretch. We thought we had bottomed out in 2021, and then same deal, turned it on and won a couple games in a row. Pretty ugly to end the season and give everyone a hope.
2022. The
2022, correct.
Yeah, no, just making sure.
So, anytime that it looks like this team is bottoming out, Deuce can get the boys going. And he does have Dabo's number to an extent. So I think there is a world where we can pull this off. But Yarnell's probably our starter on Saturday. I'm assuming Eli is cooked for this game. I'm a subscriber to backup quarterback theory, which is that you always get a little bit of juice when a halfway decent backup comes in. And it's usually because the other team doesn't have tape on them. There's enough tape on Yarnell, whether it's from previous years or that absolute stinker from Saturday. There's him throwing 2 terrible picks on tape. I think Dabo Swinney is going to be able to replicate whatever forced that to happen. My hopes are low. I'm going to be there. I'm going to tailgate. And if you have crock pot breakfast recipes for cold fall mornings, please slide into our DMs because we're going to be out there. We're going to be cheering. We're going to be boozing. No, my hopes are pretty low.
So,
but if we win, I'm going to start thinking things again.
Hey, win out. Miami drops another.
Stop. We can't go that far. Not yet. Stop.
Yeah, you're right. I'm also going to just assume that Nate Yarnell is going to line up behind center on Saturday. Typically, if a guy doesn't finish a game like Eli didn't, I'm assuming that it's a concussion protocol. I'm assuming he won't be able to be back. I would say the roadmap to a win, if Eli is somehow miraculously back, is that UVA knocked his brain back into place to where he can see his receivers again and make the throws. But assuming that is not, in fact, the case, I guess my roadmap would be there's a slightly different game plan with Nate Yarnell as QB1. Maybe it's a more conservative approach, more run heavy. Let him go out there and be a game manager versus trying to make plays. I don't know if Cade Bell's really wired like that, but it might have to be a sit down one-on-one with Narduzzi, and he looks him and goes, "All right, we got to figure something out. Nate's the quarterback this week. Dumb it down a little bit and draw me up your best running game." Um, so I guess that would be the roadmap. Maybe just win an ugly game managed game by Nate Yarnell. Clemson's obviously been human this year. This isn't, I mean, the Clemson competing for national titles year in and year out is long gone. Like you said, Narduzzi kind of has Dabo's number. Maybe we can even, I mean, I'm not going to wish this upon us because we'll be sitting in the stands and the outside, but maybe we even get some elements of the weather, some precipitation that just makes it an overall ugly game. But yeah, right now it really does feel bleak. That 10.5 points is a big number, but very much could see Clemson covering it. And then there's also always the possibility that Pitt just does what Pitt typically does at least once a year and just gives us a game that, well, I guess last year we didn't get one, but just gives us a game that,
Oh, we did. Number 10 Louisville.
oh yeah, geez, I forgot about that.
Yeah, never forget that we had a top 10 win in
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
2023.
That was
Never
like
forget.
that was like the game that almost kept Louisville out of the ACC title game. Yeah, so every year we have this goofy win that everything goes right for us, and maybe that was just the first half of the season, and we've all that mojo's gone. But maybe we've built up the super weapon just a little bit with our suck the last 2 weeks. That, oh yeah, typical Narduzzi just comes out and beats Clemson, and then drops one next week to Louisville.
It usually takes a full 6-6 season to charge the super weapon. I don't know, man.
Yeah, maybe a half charge super weapon. But like you said, last home game of the season, get the tailgate. You have an excuse to get all tuned up at like 9 in the morning. So if you have anything that you take away from this, don't just waste away your last Pitt home game of the season. Make it count. Let's make it count. Do you want to give score predictions? Squid's out. I'll save Squid's prediction. He gave us one before we started recording.
Clemson 28-13.
Yeah. 28-13. Sounds like the offense will struggle. We're never really in it that much. Kind of sounds right. Give me I'm gonna go Clemson 27, Pitt 17. We cover by a half point, but never really in the game. Maybe make it interesting for a half, but offensive woes continue. And yeah, we're once again a week closer to a dreaded 7-5 finish. That's how I feel today. If we were recording this Friday night, maybe after a win for the basketball team over West Virginia, I might be telling you that Pitt money line is a good way to grow your net worth. But as of Tuesday night, I'm just not there yet.
Hey, apparently Thomas Castellanos quit at BC after he got benched this weekend. So maybe we can sneak an 8th win after 4 straight losses to end the season.
Did he actually quit the team?
All indications are that he is not with the team right now. It is not yet clear.
Wow.
Not yet clear if he plans to return. However, I can't imagine he is welcome back with open arms when he steps away from the team for losing his spot. Guys don't typically want to play with that guy anymore.
Yeah.
Can we talk about basketball?
Yeah. Well, let me give a Squid's score prediction.
Oh yeah.
Pitt wins 30-27. And I just saw you disliked his message, so I'm gonna give him a thumbs down too. But
yeah, so if you were guessing that Squid was missing this recording for an ayahuasca trip, congratulations, you won. I see you just disliked his message as well, so glad we're on the same page.
Squid the optimist Hey, I'm one of us has to be on board. One of us has to be the loyalist of the loyal sons. Yeah, let's talk some hoops before we sign off here. Um, because the Pitt basketball Panthers are 3-0. There is a basket brawl on Friday night, and it's the kickoff to a pretty big sports weekend here in Pittsburgh. So, um, yep. Since the last time we recorded, Pitt has beaten two mid-low majors. Got the 19-point win over Gardner Webb last night in what was a frustrating, lackluster-ish performance that they still never really had any chance of losing. And then big win over Murray State on Friday. We're able to pull away late in that game. So Pitt Panthers are 3-0 heading into Friday. Basketball on the horizon and a huge stretch of games for Pitt approaching. As someone so eloquently put it in our group chat earlier, Pitt football was good enough for just long enough to get us to basketball season.
It's true. It's true. And I finally got to watch them play on Monday night after having obligations the first two games. And I'm so excited to watch on Friday the basketball. My only two notes are that Delalich is going to be awesome. He came in through an absolute dime of a pass, dipped. That was all I needed to see. And number two is okay, color me a little bit worried that a terrible mid-major might have put out the blueprint to us, because the second that that our opponent last night went into a 2-3 zone, we looked abysmal for like 10 minutes. Hit enough shots to build back to the lead that we probably earned, but outside shot hitting might be an issue.
Yeah, I had a little PTSD of how bad the early Jeff Cable teams were against zone defense. We didn't have the Blake Hinson effect last night where you have to extend the zone out to the logo because he's just going to catch and shoot from out there. Um, I'm not hitting the panic button yet. I think the change of defense slowed them down, sure, but they were getting some good looks that just didn't fall. And I mean, you look at Guillermo last night, went 2 for 8 from three. Most of them were pretty good looks. He shot 40% from three last year. Like that's not going to be the typical night from Guillermo. Um, so, and then eventually they figured it out. They ended up winning the game pretty comfortably. Probably could have won by more than 19, but uh, the bench guys got in and kind of let up a little end of game run to Gardner Webb. So I still feel good about this team. It's early in the season. You're only 3 games in. There's going to be little bumps and whatnot like that. Probably not going to get another Jalen Lowe 3 for 11 game anytime soon. Uh, he'll figure that out. So I feel good going into Friday, but come tip off, I'm going to be nervous as hell because, as we know, these November games can mean a lot. Even though it's so early in this young season, there were games in November and early December last year that essentially kept us out of March Madness 4 months later. So all of these games matter; they all count, and has a little extra juice when you're playing the Hoopies. So I'm excited. And then after the Hoopies, we have VMI at home, and then we have a stretch of games, 6 of the next 7 games against high major opponents for Pitt. So uh, time to grow up fast. About 5 of those are away from home. They got the 2 games in the Greenbrier. We're at Mississippi State. We're at Ohio State on Black Friday. And then we are at Virginia Tech December 7th before coming back home for a couple more games against mid majors. So it's a huge stretch for Pitt basketball that starts on Friday night. So uh, let's start it off right.
Please.
Please beat the Hoopies. Uh, please get down to the Peterson Event Center. if you can take out a second mortgage on your home. This is one thing I did want to bitch about today. We put
Oh
out a
yeah,
tweet. We put out a tweet earlier today about the current ticket prices for the game on Friday. This is part of that dynamic pricing model that Pitt does that absolutely sucks. Now, I have tickets to the game, so before someone comes on Twitter and starts chirping me that I'm too cheap to go to the game, it has nothing to do with that, but it has everything to do with what the atmosphere will be like on Friday. Lower corner tickets are listed for $88 on the Pitt basketball tickets website, like the official, not no secondary market, just Pitt's official website. And I think 80% of section 117 is currently empty and unaccounted for on Friday night. Um, no one can convince me that that's the right way to do things. No one.
no. And if you want to add insult to injury, a few of us that were willing to brave that kind of income loss, fork up $90 to go to the game, tried to buy tickets. The site wasn't working, and then called the ticket office, and they weren't answering the phone. So we just aren't going to the game anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a group of 6 guys who were the upper base or sideline tickets, what, $68 get in price for a November basketball game for an arena that's probably going to have like 7 or 8,000 people in it. Um, Pitt, let's figure this out. Like, there is no reason that that shouldn't be a great atmosphere in Oakland on Friday. You've got a big game against Clemson the next morning. Um, Stop pricing out fans. Like, there are a group of 6 guys in their 20s who, well, like you said, were willing to fork up the money, but the website wasn't working. But either way, like, I mean, $70 to sit up top at the Pete for a November basketball game. This isn't Pitt UConn circa
The Pete was
2009.
packed for years in a row, absolutely filled to the top, and then the team got bad, but now they're good again. And God, I know that we aren't attendance state, but the Pete looks like Acrisure.
Yeah, and I will say, like, once we get into ACC play, the big games later in the year, um, those Saturday games, they'll sell out a few, and the Pete will be rocking. But it takes some winning. It takes some time for people to get into basketball mode, figure out supply and demand, sell some tickets up in the upper deck for 25, $30. Some lower levels for $50. People will get in the door, buy a couple beers, buy some food, bring their kid to the game. Um, but like, let's figure this out.
And please win.
And please win. And please win. Please win Friday night against West Virginia. Pitt football, please try to win Saturday morning against the Clemson
Do your best,
Tigers.
have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Do your best, have fun, do your thing. But yeah, either way, it's a great weekend for Pitt fans. Pitt volleyball also playing Friday night, which they keep overlapping these games, which is not ideal either. But Pitt volleyball Friday night, they take on Florida State at 5 p.m. So you can actually catch both games. Head up the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. I actually think they might have sold that one out. I think I saw a graphic come out earlier. But if you already have tickets, you can catch both games. Please beat Florida State. Run down to Mario's, Peters, have a couple beers, run back up the hill, beat West Virginia, go to sleep, wake up early as you can get up Saturday morning, have some breakfast beers, some nice Irish coffee, head into the stadium, and please beat the Clemson Tigers at noon on Saturday. Enjoy the weekend, Pitt fans. As always, thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like this, wherever you're listening. And as always, hail, loyal sons of Pittsburgh.